Caleb, I'm going to go straight to the Courier Mail. The headline is Enemies of the State Outrage as deceptive teens cause COVID chaos. 2 teenage girls with COVID-19 have been fined $4,000 each after travelling to Melbourne and lying to authorities about where they'd been. A third woman, the 23-year-old sister of one of the girls who did not travel to Melbourne, also tested positive to the virus late yesterday, sparking fears of a second wave of the pandemic. Now, I'm going to go straight to the Oz, Caleb, and then straight to the Huns, and then I want to get your comments. The front page of The Australian takes this story a little bit further. Bags of trouble, teen trip ends in cluster. Michael McKenna, Mackenzie Scott, 2 teenagers who tested positive to coronavirus in Queensland allegedly travelled to Melbourne this month on a shoplifting mission to steal luxury handbags, as fears rose that the 19-year-old women had triggered Queensland's first community-transmitted cluster in months. With a sister of one of the pair also testing positive late on Wednesday, it emerged they were wanted by Victoria Police. And then, of course, we go to the front of the Herald Sun. And again, we have the photographs of these 2 women. Dumb and dumber is the headline. From Melbourne to COVID mayhem. A pair of reckless Brisbane women who travelled to Melbourne, then flew home via Sydney, infected with COVID-19 and lied to avoid quarantine, have sparked chaos in 2 states. Queensland will shut its border to Sydney-siders. AFL teams are evacuating New South Wales, and Brisbane nursing homes are being locked down because the teens spent 8 days mixing in their community before getting tested. Take it away, Caleb Bond.
How thick do you have to be? I mean, seriously, you look at these 2 young women and it looks like they've had so much poison injected into their faces that it's gone to their brains. I mean, for heaven's sake, how stupid, how irresponsible do you have to be, A, to go to Melbourne in the first place, B, to then go to Sydney, then to go back to Brisbane and lie about where you've been, along the way possibly infecting people who you've come across. Then when you get back to Brisbane, you don't even do the courtesy of going into quarantine or going to get a test to check whether you should go into quarantine. No, you mix in the community for 8 days. And for that, they have been fined $4,000. The princely sum of $4,000 for possibly infecting dozens and dozens of people with coronavirus. 8 days they were walking around, and they get effectively a slap on the wrist. I mean, it just makes a whole mockery of everything we've been doing in this country to try and stop the spread of coronavirus. Everything that New South Wales, that Queensland has done, it's just ridiculous.
And Caleb, you've got to understand, here in Queensland, they've done an amazing job in containing this virus. And just last week, the State Parliament in Queensland passed laws which would allow them, the police and the judiciary, to impose jail terms of up to 6 months for exactly what these women are alleged to have done. Now,
and why isn't that happening?
If you're going to introduce laws,
seriously,
if you're going to introduce laws, Caleb, if you're going to introduce laws to stop the spread of coronavirus, and let's be frank here, this is a killer virus. I mean, this has the potential to kill people, and yet they're fined, as you say, $4,000 after having been to Melbourne on, guess what? A shoplifting spree trip. Seriously,
I mean, it
seriously.
Belief. It beggars belief, doesn't it?
Beggars belief.
I mean, you are right. If you introduce laws to deal with people like this in that kind of way, why are they not being used? I mean, this would have to be the greatest example, a greatest possible example of how you could break the rules and how to be irresponsible, and that the law should come down on these girls like a ton of bricks, and instead they're getting a slap on the wrist. I can't believe it.
Narcissistic, selfish, disgraceful, and they've been fined $4,000.